Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Now, everything old is new again. America's entertainment pop culture talk show.
It may well possess a rudimentary intelligence.
I'm trying to think, but nothing happens.
Felt a great disturbance in the force.
Hello, I'm Mr. Red.
Come on, Mark, like a job for me.
Where's the goodies? Leave the gun. Take the cannoli.
I bet you wouldn't have done anything like this if Mom and Dad were here.
You filthy criminal.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
Go ahead. Make my day.
Here are your hosts, Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Love, life's sweetest reward. Let it flow.
There we go. Welcome to Everything Old is New again. This is Douglas Viviani. I challenge you not to know what is the next line in that theme song. Yes, that's the Love Boat theme. Question is, why am I playing it? This week, we're happy to spend some time with a special guest. In the 1960s, our guest was a special guest on such notable shows as Jack Benny, Green Acres, The Flying Nun, Ben Casey, McHale's Navy, My Favorite Martian, Petticoat Junction, Bewitched, Mary Tyler Moore Show, Doris Day, Kojak, and that's just to name a few of them. But you would know him from his ingenious characterization, I would say. If you're a fan of Guest Smart, of Siegfried, and if you are, I've just given away who it is. And thereafter, he was Dr. Adam Bricker on over 250 episodes, every episode of The Love Boat from 76 to 86. Guest starred on television shows and movies from the end of The Love Boat until now, and he's recently was in the incarnation of Hawaii Five-0 and Superstore, if you saw that Valentine's Day episode. Truly, everything old is new again. Welcome, Bernie Koipell.
Holy mackerel. Why don't you save some of that for my memorial?
We could tape it. We could send it out on the air, whatever you need.
Oh, good. No, I've been so lucky over the years. I mean, I was just coming out to Hollywood. I was misinformed, my pal Jim Drury, and we went to NYU together, and he was such a handsome guy. He still is. When we walked through the halls of NYU, all the girls they pointed to him and said, Hollywood, Hollywood. And, of course, he went right to Hollywood and started working in Westerns. He worked with Elvis Presley. He worked in Ride the High Country. And I was in the Navy, and I came out. I had sort of 6 months of nothing happening because I didn't know what my marketability was. That's something I always tell young people. You will find out what your marketability is when you get out of school, if you're interested in theater. So one day he said, Bernie, come on out to California. I got an agent for you. I said, wow, this is so exciting because having an agent is like a magic thing. They give you entree. So I came out to California with my little 8x10 and my very skimpy resume, and I handed it to his agent, and the agent gives me a sort of a judgmental kind of a look, and he said, did Jim tell you I'd be your agent? How can I be your agent? I don't know what I can do with you. I don't know what you can do. I don't know what your marketability is. And he looks at me real hard. He says, you're not handsome enough to be a leading man. You're not ugly enough to be a heavy, he says. And he handed me back my papers, and I might have been destroyed at that point, but my attitude was, I jumped into the pool, not even realizing if there was any water in the pool. I just wanted it. I wanted it. So, and that began my whole world in California. I've been here since 1958.
Wow. And I think your experience of growing up in Brooklyn may have given you a little bit more of a backbone than you're letting on, you know? When us New Yorkers are faced with adversity, I think we might be at our best. I don't know. That kind of gets you a little motivated when that gentleman said what he said to you?
Well, it depends, Douglas. It depends on who you are. It depends on what you're made of. It depends on what you might be running away from. I didn't want to be in my father's business. He was in the jewelry business. I detested the jewelry business because it was predicated on deceit. And he was a master salesman. He had that great talent using deceit to convince customers that what they held in their hand was the most valuable thing that they could ever conceive of, and he did very well. But at home, I guess part of it was the way way that people were, the way that men were at the time. It was a very aggressive, authoritarian way that he had, and he pushed me. The only way I could make a living was to be in the jewelry business, and I didn't want to do that. And he was very rough on me, and I think he actually convinced me through word and action that I had no value. So my only salvation was to rebel, and I rebelled. You might say, in some kind of destructive ways. I drank too much as a kid. I cut school, Erasmus Hall High School, and I'm just very pleased that my rebellion didn't destroy me. But I would not buckle under his assault. So I wanted something, and then a lovely teacher at Erasmus Hall said, Mr. Koipell, are you chewing gum? And she sent me this note, and may we borrow your voice for verse choir? Well, that began something that pleased me. I got into verse choir. Then I got into the radio workshop at Boys High, and then I was lucky enough to get into the all-city radio workshop at City Hall, and that gave me something that I loved to do, and that was very valuable to me because there was not too much joy at home.
Right, and that we could see the joy in what you do, and I think we've heard this from other guests that we've had. Very interesting stories from, say, Peter Weller and Terry Winter, who was the creator of Boardwalk Empire, and he won an Emmy for Sopranos. He was a lawyer, and just decided, you know what, I don't want to do this, and got on a plane and flew out to California, was writing his scripts and submitted. In other words, followed his bliss, followed what he thought he wanted to do, something at the very least that he enjoyed doing, and no matter what was going to come in his way, this is what he enjoyed doing, so he was going to do it, whether it was just ending up writing an off-Broadway play, so to speak, or being as successful as he is, you know, and I think that's what you're presenting to us as well, is you kind of got the bug, or you found out something that you loved, and heck or high water, you were going to go try to achieve that as a career, I guess, right?
Yeah, I talk to youngsters all the time, and I said, find what you love to do and pursue that. You don't want to get stuck into some kind of a job. Well, sometimes you need a job, just a survival job, just to pay the bills. But find what you love to do and pursue that, and that's the only way you can be happy and pleased and gratified.
And then work is not work, right? I mean, just so you know a little background on myself here, I'm, we'll say, in my 50s, and I just started this show 2.5 years ago, and I'm a lawyer also, and the reason why I did was because I denied myself what I thought I wanted to do for my career, because everyone said, what are you talking about, be on the radio? How do you do that? And there's no path to that, and you might as well, you know, you're a smart guy, whatever, try to do something with your brain. That's, you know, there's a clear path, go to school and do this, that, and you know, I ended up being not as happy as I am now when I'm actually doing what I think, I hope that I'm here to do, if that makes any sense.
There you go. Now, I had teams of relatives, uncles and aunts. They would assault me with, what are you doing to your parents? What are you doing to your parents? And this is a very ironic piece of advice. Take $5,000 and lose it, but find some way to make a living.
Right.
If you lose the $5,000, that's not successful financially. But they just kept coming at me, and I kept saying, "Forget about it. Forget about it. I'm doing what I love to do."
And you do it well, Bernie Koipell. It's great to have you on Everything Old is New Again. We're visiting with Bernie Koipell from The Love Boat, from Get Smart, and so many other shows that you know. Welcome, Bernie Koipell. Well, come on back to Everything Old is New Again. And revisit 1960s and 70s.
You're listening to Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Life's sweetest reward. Let it flow.
Welcome back to Everything Old is New Again. That, of course, is from The Love Boat. We're talking to the doctor, the good doctor himself, Bernie Koipell. Let's go back in time a little bit, Bernie, before The Love Boat, and speak a little bit about your time with Jack Benny. Okay, so eventually you started out with Jack Benny. I'm going to play just a smidge of a clip here with Jack Benny on the Marx brother, Groucho Marx, You Bet Your Life, just to bring us along if people can remember a smidge of this gentleman and his impact. Just a couple seconds here.
For many years, this bum has been lying about his age. Now, for $3,000, can you tell me how old he really is?
Now, that's a clip of Groucho, and he's not even, Jack Benny's not even talking, and he's getting laughs just from his persona, just from what he presented beforehand and how successful he was. And I know you were on his show a couple of times. Did you, I don't know, I know you say that was a very gregarious individual. What was he like to work with? This was probably a gentleman that was at the top of his game on television, on radio. There was few other more successful individuals than him when you were working with him.
Jack Benny understood. He had an innate understanding of comedy, and he understood that reactions sometimes are more valuable comedically than what people are saying. And he was a prince of a man. And if I can say something that he said to me, once I found out that I was going to be on the Jack Benny show, I said, "Oh my God, this is going to be so." I had my heart in my mouth, and I said, "I got to go over this a million times just to make sure that I don't mess up." And he said to me after our first rehearsal, "How come you know your lines so well, you son of a bitch?" And I said, "Because working with you, Mr. Benny, I couldn't bear the thought of messing up." And what he did at that point, because the man had no actor ego, he just poo-pooed it and sort of waved his hands like, "Oh, come on, don't. It's not necessary to give me compliments." And he was just amazing. And what I did with him is my first 5 years was nothing but playing Latinos, very unusual for a nice Jewish boy from Brooklyn, because I could do the accent. I did the accent. Okay, so I had formed a routine about. We had a director in this. I did a daytime soap called The Brighter Day in 1961. 1961. That was my first deal on television. And I'm playing a Latino. I'm playing a Mexican bad guy. Thank you, Mr. Trump. And the director was a very, very flamboyant Herb Kenworth. So maybe in the middle of the night, I formed this thing sort of accidentally while I was sleeping. I said, "Why don't I make a little routine with the personality of Herb Kenworth, very flamboyant, and my Mexican character?" And he came out to be a funny shtick. It was very funny. So I had a very aggressive agent at the time, and I had this shtick happening, and we were bust into offices. And he said, "Bernie, do the pilot." And I did the pilot. I mean, it made me very nervous, but it was just a beginning of really being pushy. So one day over at Universal, I'm in the casting director's office, Bob Edmondson, and he said, "Bernie, do the pilot." I do the pilot, and Edmondson says, "Stop." And he calls Fred DeCordova, who was producing the Jack Benny show, and he says, "Mr. DeCordova, I think I have your Rinaldi brother. Can I come?" He said, "Yeah, come on over." We ran over to Fred DeCordova's office. I did the routine with him, and zap, I got the Jack Benny show. And it was a brilliant idea that I was a master gunslinger. I had all kinds of medals for shooting. And my brother, he comes in a ballet costume with a cape, and it was supposed to be the new talent show. And Mr. Benny said, "Well, what do you do?" And I said, "I am the least important part of this act. My brother, he's the fastest man in the world. I am going to shoot at him. And he, with his fantastic agility and grace, will dodge the bullets. So I ask for a drum roll, and there's a cutout of a human form behind my supposed brother. And I ask for a drum roll, I get the drum roll, and I shoot at him. Bang! And he does this jerky, herky movement, and evidently gets out of the way. And now there's a bullet hole in the cutout of the human form, and Jack goes to it, sticks his finger in the hole, and he looks at the camera and says, "Amazing." And then I do a second bullet, and then I empty my 6 guns in the direction of my brother. It's a little long routine. And eventually, I kill my brother. And he falls, he stands up very, very correctly for a moment, and then he falls down dead. And Jack walks up to the supposed dead body, and he looks right into the camera and says, "Well, I guess they just weren't ready for the big time," which was a brilliant routine, and luckily there was an on-set cameraman who took photos of that routine, and I have that from 1961. And every once in a while I look at it and I say, God, what a wonderful, wonderful experience this was. And that got me going. I did a Latino character on The Flying Nun, The Favorite Martian, as I mentioned, the Jack Benny Show, the Danny Kaye Show, Steve Allen Show. So very odd, but strange. And my mother would look at these shows and she said, "Bernard, you are watching the shows and you're talking funny." I said, "Yes, Mom, I'm talking funny, but I tell you something that you might like. They're giving me checks for talking funny. The checks are clearing." She said, "Oh, that's wonderful." My little Brooklyn mother.
And that was inspired basically from, I mean, we talk about doing what you love. The creative juices are flowing when you've got nothing else on your mind. In other words, you're in the moment because you're enjoying the moment, you're loving the moment, and we're enjoying the moment with Bernie Koipell. We're going to be right back right after this to continue more. I've got a lot to explore with this ingenious gentleman, Bernie Koipell. We'll be right back. And this is a good opportunity here to take a break just for a moment to promote not only Bernie Koipell, who'll be with us for the next 2 shows. Of course, Bernie is, or you may know him from so many different things, from Bewitched to Get Smart as Siegfried, or the Doctor on The Love Boat. Recently, he was in an episode of Superstore, which is on these days, a sitcom that he made a memorable appearance on their Valentine's Day show. So we're going to revisit all of that with Bernie Koipell soon. If you're enjoying listening to David Cohen and myself every week on Everything Old is New Again on this station, please do me a favor. Shoot them an email, shoot them a note, shoot them a telephone call. Let them know that you're enjoying Everything Old is New Again. Certainly, if you are listening on, let's say, the computer or a friend's area, and you're not listening in your hometown, and you'd like to hear Everything Old is New Again, please do the same. Call your local talk station and say, listen, take a look at Everything Old is New Again on their website, everythingoldisnewagain.biz. We've got all the old shows you can listen to. We've got it on our YouTube station, Everything Old is New Again Radio. So we're having some fun. We'd like to bring along as many people as we can. So please feel free to to participate, get involved. Shoot us a note at oldnewagain@AOL.com, oldnewagain@AOL.com. We'll be right back, and Everything Old is New Again. Bernie Koipell. Listen to that, how loud that is. Wow.
You're listening to Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Que sera, whatever will be, will be. The future's not ours to see.
Welcome back to Everything Old is New Again, Que Sera, Sera. That is, of course, Doris Day, and we're in with here with Bernie Koipell talking about all the experiences he's had with these giants, and he's a giant himself. He's been in 128 shows, multiple times, not to mention all 250 episodes of The Love Boat. Bernie, welcome back to Everything Old is New Again, and just wanted to talk to you a little bit about dovetailing off of Jack Benny there and the comedic experience you had there, and you were on Doris Day quite a number of times, and some other shows we'll go through in a couple of minutes, but I just wanted to see, in general, I see that the way you play comedy is more or less serious. You're playing it as, even when you're playing Siegfried, which we'll get to, you seem to be playing these characters more or less serious, maybe a little tongue-in-cheek, but you're not you tell me, are you looking for laughs as you're doing these characters, or you're playing it serious and let the laughs come, if that makes any sense?
Well, it's like I read the Neil Simon book, and he said, okay, comedy. He said, if you're going to do, so there's sketch comedy where you can do the wagga wagga stuff, you can do the silly faces and stuff, or there is a comedic acting, and if you're going to do, like I'm referring to his play, Rumors, that we did, and that he came to see, the master came to see our production of Rumors in California, and we were so nervous because he was very picky about his work, and I know that he had stopped a tour in Florida. He didn't like the way somebody else's tour was going, so we were very apprehensive. Is he going to like us? Is he going to like us? So we were looking at his face through the mirror of the stage manager, and he was smiling and he was happy. And at the end, he sat for a picture with the cast, and he gave us an inscription. He said, "This should have been my New York production."
Wow.
He loved it. And in his book, he said, when you're playing comedy, play the situation. Don't try to add making goofy faces and all of that, because that's tiresome and that is counterproductive. So our director, Richard Klein, really made us toe the line with that kind of. We were all in the situation where somebody apparently had shot himself on the second level, and police came, and we were liable to lose. Very wealthy people were liable to lose our positions, our money, and lose our freedom. So he says, play the situation. This is an anxiety situation. Anything bad can happen. So when you do your little seeming improvisations, play it with the anxiety that you might be losing everything in your life. And that's how we played it. So that really made a tremendous impression on me. Don't screw around with the author's brilliant work. And Neil Simon also insisted that you may not change words around, because he measured every phrase. He measured the phrases. He put the words for maximum impact. And what a great lesson in comedy. So when I did Siegfried, of course this guy he sounds very mean. He sounds very authoritative. And I had that great energy and impulse, and it just turned out. And as I was rehearsing, and I said, geez, I hope this is going to work out funny, because the guy seemed to be so serious. And Don Adams was just so responsive to my work. I was very nervous, because not all great stars are happy with someone getting big laughs. I don't want to mention any names, so I won't, but I had a very scary experience with one star who felt that he would be the only one on the show getting laughs. Well, I got dumped out of that show. But with Don was so responsive and supportive and loving to me and to my character. And I said, is anything I'm doing bothering you at all? He said, no, you set me up. And I was so tickled that I felt at home with Don Adams. And Barbara Feldon, who played 99, she and I just talked yesterday. We became great friends and remain great friends. She's a brilliant, independent woman, and I love to have lunches with her. To have whenever I'm in New York, we'll have lunch, we'll have dinner, and we just have a great time together. A brilliant, independent lady.
Speaking of that, you also work with Elizabeth Montgomery in Bewitched, Mary Tyler Moore in the Dick Van Dyke Show, and we have a clip here to get into the Mary Tyler Moore experience you had. Let's just start with the clip here. I know it was just one appearance, but it was memorable on on Mary Tyler Moore.
So Lou Grant.
Lou?
In there, and Murray Slaughter.
Murray?
This is Tony...
Kramer.
Very
nice to meet you.
Just a little bit to get us rolling here. And that was an episode where you were going to date Mary, and it turns out that because of Ted Baxter's school that he was trying to promote, a broadcasting school, she had to go along and teach a class, eventually to one student, and you were the boyfriend, or I should say the date, kind of sticking around. So you were in all these scenes and watching the creation of the magic there, and you were part of the magic. So what was it like to work with an ensemble like that, with everyone had a little established roles, and you're coming in to try to put your 2 cents in there?
Okay, let me tell you about Mary Tyler Moore. There was a show called Richard Diamond that preceded her on the Dick Van Dyke Show. I did the Dick Van Dyke Show. So on that show, Mary Tyler Moore had the most beautiful, well-formed, gorgeous legs of any human being, maybe with the exception of Juliet Prowse, who I did scenes in bed with on Love Boat. Anyway, Mary Tyler Moore. So she just showed her legs on this. She was a secretary, and they had this concept that it would be so fascinating if the secretary, played by Mary Tyler Moore, would just show her legs. She crossed her legs, she uncrossed her legs, and she was the secretary of David Jensen. And then she gets the Mary Tyler Moore show. I mean, the Dick Van Dyke Show. Sorry, I must have Mary Tyler Moore on the brain. So one day, and I'm playing a Mexican divorce lawyer on the Dick Van Dyke Show, and I'm just observing Carl Reiner and Mary Tyler Moore. And this day, she's wearing shorts. Oh, saints preserve us. She's wearing shorts, and Carl gives her this little direction. It's a little piece of choreography where she has to go a little around a little table, and she does it just the way he asked her to do it. And then she does it, and she looks at Carl like, did I do it right? And Carl said, please do it again. And she said, Carl, I did it exactly the way you wanted me to do it. And Carl said, just do it again, just for me. Because she just was so lovely. She was so lovely and beautiful. And when I did the Dick Van Dyke Show, I don't know if people remember this, but Dick and Mary Tyler Moore were having some kind of marriage arguments, and they were considering a divorce. So they come to Mexico, where me is I'm a Mexican divorce lawyer, and I tell them such complicated things about getting a divorce that they just decide, well, we'll just stay married. So they stayed married, but I had just great fun, and it was an education to work on the Dick Van Dyke Show.
We're back with Bernie Koipell right after this on Everything Old is New Again.
Life's sweetest reward.
All right, we're back here for the podcasters to continue a little behind the scenes with Bernie Koipell talking about Dick Van Dyke. Here we go.
And I did 3 Dick Van Dyke shows. I did Diagnosis Murder, and then there was one time with Dick. He was just he needed a rest. He was in Carefree, Arizona, relaxing, taking it easy. And CBS always thought of Dick correctly, that Dick was television gold. Whatever you put him in is going to be successful. So they said, Dick. They said, Dick, we have a show for you. He says, guys, please, I'm relaxing here in Carefree, and I'm not going to come back to Hollywood. So they offered him more money. He said, guys, please understand, I need my rest. So they put their heads together and they said, Dick, what if we build you a studio in Carefree, Arizona? And he said, okay. So they built him a studio in Carefree, Arizona. And what he had to do is, I played an Arizona Highway Patrol, and it was an illustration. Dick had this brilliant drunk routine, and that gave this gave him a chance to do his drunk routine. And I was playing very straight, and I had eight little shot glasses of booze, and I was illustrating that the more you drink, the less comprehension and less control you have over your driving. Well, we did the show, and he just killed with that drunk routine. So after the show, he puts his hand around my shoulder. You know, when you're up after a show, you're up, and your adrenaline is flowing. He says, Bernie, you want to come with me and have a drink? And I said, oh, but now I'm fantasizing, going to some very exclusive place in Carefree, having a drink with this great, great star. And I said, oh, yeah, of course, yeah, let's do it. This will be great. So on our way, and I'm figuring this is on our way to his car, he stops at the prop room, and I figure, well, he just has to pick up something. The prop room was his destination. So we go to the prop room with bare beams. We sat on boxes and got plotzed. Dick Van Dyke and Bernie Koipell.
How about that? That's a picture. You learned quite a bit then as well, right?
Now get this. Now 2 months later, Harvey Korman calls me. He had just directed another Dick Van Dyke show in Carefree. He says, Bernie, you'll never guess what just happened to me. I said, I know what happened to you. He said, well, how would you know? I said, because the same thing happened to me. You got plotzed in the prop room.
His own private stash there, right?
Just tremendous fun.
And he
was.
I was going to say,
Dick was also in the audience when Neil Simon came to see Rumors, and we have a picture of Dick and Doc Simon, and Jack Klugman was also there that night. So it was just one of those heavenly nights.
And just classic names and classic people and work that you've been in. It goes on and on. We'll be back. I just wanted to just tie that in with the Mary Tyler Moore Show just for a second. In that, just for the listeners, Murray Slaughter, of course, was Gavin MacLeod, and of course he turned out to be Captain Stooping on the Love Boat, right?
Absolutely.
So we'll come back and we'll continue with Bernie Koipell right after this on Everything Old is New Again.
Who can turn the world on with her smile?
Now, back to America's entertainment pop culture talk show. Everything old is new again with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
Oh, yes, I remember now. Missed it by that much.
And I'm glad you're not missing our show here on Everything Old is New Again with Bernie Koipell, who, of course, was Siegfried on Get Smart and quite a number of performances on television throughout the years, the last, I'm going to say 50 years. But I wanted to go back. We were talking about and started the last section off about Doris Day. We ended up talking about strong women in comedy and Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore. But how was your experience with Doris Day? You were with her quite a bit on that show.
Well, I go back with Doris Day to the thrill of it all. The thrill of it all, I played a floor director on a television show, and she is at a party where she's talking about the wonderful aspect of Happy Soap. Her kids love Happy Soap, and at that party is the guy who owns the company of Happy Soap, and he's so impressed with her praising his product, he makes her the new spokesperson. Now, she allegedly has never done any television, and so she appears to be amateurish. She holds the soap bar upside down, and she fumpers a little bit, and I'm giving her a little heartburn by saying, hold it, turn around. And I said, talk faster. and she's a little annoyed with me. So when it got to be her show, the Doris Day show, I said, gee whiz, how is she going to relate to me? Is she going to be remembering that I was maybe not that pleasant with her? She'll probably remember that it was just, just acting. So the first thing I did with her, coming back to my Latino roots, I played a Cuban guy who hijacked her plane. Okay, so now she's hijacked, she's in my power, and we had very, very nice comedic scenes. Her as Doris Day and myself as this Mexican guy. So then, about a year later, I come back as Louis Palucci, who owned the building. We had a little trattoria on the ground floor, and she lived above, and Kay Ballard was my wife, two excitable Italians. I know you have difficulty relating to that, but that's how it is. Anyway, lovely, funny scenes, and the last one I did, because they really couldn't make up their mind what their premise would be on the show. The last one I did was I played her old uncle. Now, I was still about 10 years or so younger than she is, but I'm a character actor, okay? And this was, I played Uncle August von Kappelhoff. Now, von Kappelhoff was her real name. She was not born with Doris Day as a name. So we had lovely, lovely, lovely scenes, memorable scenes, certainly in my mind and her mind. So a number of years go by, we hadn't talked, and I'd heard in the news that her only son, Terry Melcher, had passed away from cancer. And I said, oh, gee, that's just so awful. So my phone rings. A female disguised voice comes on. Hello, Uncle August? And I said, Clara Bixby? Billy DeWolf had given her that name of Clara Bixby. So we talked. Now, this is around Christmas time, 10 years ago or so. Her beautiful singing is making people joyful all over the world, and the human being, the Doris Day human being, was so unhappy and depressed. So we talked for over an hour, and now we talk every couple of months, and I'm involved in her pet foundation. She's crazy about dogs. Now, on her set, she had about 17 dogs. Very unusual, you might say. Now, the dogs knew, once the bell went on, the bell meant, okay, get ready to shoot, they couldn't make any noise. But once the two bells rang, which means all clear, they could bark and frolic and wag their tails and make noises. So it was a very happy set. And this is a note that is so astonishing. She starts out as a singer. She becomes a top 10 singer. Then she evolves into a top 10 movie stars, and she worked in the movies with Jimmy Cagney, Jimmy Stewart, Frank Sinatra, Clark Gable, on and on, Rock Hudson, on and on and on. And I asked her, I said, no one in the world has ever done what you have done to go from a top 10 singer to a top 10 movie star. I said, did you go to acting classes? How did you do that? No one in the world has ever done that. So she pauses and says, I don't know, it was just fun.
There you go. And that was the inspiration we talk about the beginning of our show, too. You know, again, she was in her zone. She was doing what she loved. Apparently, it was fun. And when you're doing something you love, I guess you'll go over you'll do so much extra. You'll go past that 5 o'clock if it's a 9 to 5 job. You know,
yeah, your energy comes out of the love, the enjoyment, the gratification that you're getting from it. And you know, she started out as a dancer. She went to dance class, and then she had an accident, a car accident, that just crushed her right leg. And during her recuperation time, she started singing, listening to the radio, and that's how she became Doris Day, this world-class singer.
Wow, this triple.
So sometimes accidents have a happy ending.
That's everything for a reason. Sometimes, And speaking of that, Doris Day had, you think of her. If you think of one thing, you think of Que Sera, Sera, and that's not fair because she did so many things. But that is sort of a catchphrase of hers. We at Everything Old Is New Again, we went a couple of years back into an evaluation of the best catchphrases of all time. So I'm going to ask Bernie Koipell to just listen to a few from the 60s and 70s, just to refresh his recollection of some, and we'll talk about catchphrases in general, and then maybe we'll determine what might be the best catchphrase of all time right after this.
You want to go to the moon? Do you want to go to the moon? Bang, zoom. I see nothing. I know nothing.
What am I, a doctor or a moon shuttle conductor?
I'm a doctor, not a coal miner.
Keep saying that. Are you a doctor, aren't you?
I don't know.
Now, of course, I had to put in the Star Trek reference there. Every show we do a Star Trek reference, Bernie, if you're not familiar. Just before we discuss it, I've got one more set, just a quick one to refresh our all memories, a little bit of some catchphrases from back in the day. Let's see if we can...
Marsha, Marsha, Marsha.
Hey. Hear that, Elizabeth? I'm coming to join you, honey.
And it all belongs to Kid Dynamite!
There's a few. Now, so in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, we were looking at this, and certainly Seinfeld had quite a few, but it seems to have died off a little bit. But I think back in the 60s and 70s, catch me if I'm wrong here, there were a lot of catchphrases that shows used. And my question would be, because we're going to play one of yours shortly, where do you think in the pantheon, do catchphrases, are they necessary? Were they a time of the past? Do you have any thoughts about why they're even used?
Well, I think that the catchphrases just came out of the script. You go along and you respond to certain things, and some things just come out and they sound extra special. For example, when I had Don and Barbara in the submarine, we were in the submarine, we were chasing the Sixth Fleet, and we were trying to get into position to give them a torpedo, and they were dropping depth bombs on us. So the depth bombs were making the guys nervous. So one gets to be fairly close to the submarine, and a big bang, and it shakes up the submarine. And the guys are getting nervous, and I said, "You will not panic until I give the order to panic." So they get very nervous, and another depth bomb comes so very close, and I say, "Prepare to panic!" So that was one catchphrase, but Don had really most of them.
Thank you, Bernie Koipell, for your input on our catchphrase inquiry on Everything Old Is New Again. We'll be back next week to continue with Bernie Koipell.